The human fleet drifted quietly through the edges of the Viridian cluster, a sector known for its shimmering gas clouds and planets that glowed with unusual colors. Captain Elias Ward stared at the holographic display in front of him, his fingers tapping nervously on the console. For years, humanity had only heard of the Zalari from scattered reports, an ancient alien race, proud and secretive, whose knowledge of the stars rivaled humanity's own. Now, for the first time, they were here to meet them. Elias adjusted his uniform and turned to his small diplomatic team. "Remember, our mission is peaceful. No sudden moves, no arrogance. The Zalari value calm and wisdom." The team nodded. Among them was Dr. Mara Collins, a xenobiologist, and Lieutenant Kiran Singh, an expert in alien customs. Both were anxious and excited. They had trained for this, but the reality of meeting a royal alien princess was something entirely different. As the human shuttle approached the floating city at the heart of the cluster, its spires gleamed like glass under the distant sun. The city seemed alive, shimmering with color and movement. From a distance, a figure descended to meet them, tall, regal, and glowing with iridescent scales that shifted color as she moved. Princess Lyria, youngest of the Zalari royal line, hovered slightly above the ground, her eyes sharp and calculating. As the humans approached, she raised her hand, and a strange, resonating tone filled the plaza. The wind seemed to still, and all the citizens of the city paused to watch. "You humans! Lies you speak! Lies about the thing you call procreation!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the air. Elias blinked. I'm sorry, Princess?" "You heard me." Lyria's green eyes flashed like lightning. "You claim to create life in ways that are sacred and intimate. You speak of love and care, but I see only fiction, only falsehoods. I refuse to believe such lies." The humans exchanged uneasy glances. This was not what they had expected. They had prepared for diplomatic disputes, trade negotiations, even philosophical debates, but not an accusation against the most fundamental act of life. "Princess Lyria," Elias said carefully, holding up his hands, "we mean no offense. Our goal is to share knowledge, not to deceive. Perhaps there is a misunderstanding. Let us explain." The princess snorted and crossed her arms. "Explanation? I have heard stories from travelers and scholars alike. Humans speak in riddles. You invent tales to justify desires you cannot control. How can I trust you?" Dr. Mara Collins stepped forward. "Princess, we understand your skepticism, but human reproduction is not a story. It is a biological process. We can show you evidence, data, images, everything you need to know." Lyria's eyes narrowed. "I do not need images. Images can be forged. Data can be fabricated. Humans are liars by nature." Elder Draxian, a wise Zalari counselor, floated forward, his presence calm and reassuring. "Princess, perhaps it is wise to hear them out before casting judgment. You have always valued reason. Let us not reject knowledge without consideration." Lyria hesitated. The counselor's words carried weight, and after a moment she flicked her tail in reluctant agreement. "Very well. But I warn you, humans, I will see through lies. Any deception, and I will expose it." The humans followed her into the grand hall, a massive chamber with walls that shimmered like liquid crystal. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing images of human families, infants, and the process of life from conception to early childhood. Elias spoke slowly and clearly. "Princess, we want you to understand that human reproduction is more than a physical process. It involves care, responsibility, and love. We raise our children, protect them, and teach them to live in the world. It is not just biology, it is culture, morality, and connection." Lyria's gaze swept over the images. This seems orchestrated. You show only the ideal. Where is the truth of failure, of cruelty, of deception?" Mara nodded. Humanity is imperfect, Princess. Yes, but even in our flaws, there is truth. Even in mistakes, there is learning. These images are examples, but the essence is what matters, the desire to nurture life. The princess crossed her arms again, shimmering with defiance. I have seen humans in tales, wars, betrayals, greed. You are not noble. Why should I believe you on this matter? Elias decided to change tactics. Words and images may not convince you. Perhaps seeing actions firsthand will. Will you allow us to show you human care and effort in practice? Lyria hesitated, then, with a flick of her tail, agreed. Very well, you may show me, but I will not be easily swayed. Thus began a journey unlike any Lyria had imagined. The humans took her to a small settlement on a distant planet, where life moved at a slower pace. The houses were simple, constructed from local materials, and the fields around them were green and fertile. Children played in the dirt, laughing and calling to one another, while adults worked diligently, tending crops, repairing equipment, or sharing meals. At first, Lyria's reactions were sharp. She flinched at laughter, suspicious of physical touch, and dismissed gestures of care as manipulative. Why do they smile so freely? She asked Mara. It is false. They pretend joy to hide weakness. Mara shook her head. It is not pretension, Princess. Humans smile because they feel joy, hope, or relief. Their expressions are honest even when life is hard. Days passed, and slowly Lyria's hard shell began to crack. She observed a human father teaching his child to plant seeds, patiently guiding little hands into the soil. She saw neighbors helping each other repair homes after a storm. She watched mothers and fathers soothing crying children with gentle words and warm embraces. Each observation challenged her beliefs. The humans were imperfect, yes, and sometimes clumsy, but their care and effort were undeniable. It was not fiction or lies. It was real. Still, Lyria refused to admit the truth openly. These acts may be real, but they do not prove your claims. Procreation, as you call it, is still a human invention to control desire and justify existence. Elias smiled gently. Perhaps, Princess, it is not about invention or control. Perhaps it is about responsibility, courage, and love. What you see here is the human spirit expressed in life itself. That is the truth we wish to share. Even with his words, Lyria remained wary. Yet, something deep inside stirred, a sense that humans were more than what she had been taught to believe. She could not ignore the authenticity of their care, the way they risked their safety for one another, the joy they found in nurturing life. The turning point came unexpectedly. One morning, a fire broke out in a nearby farm. Flames licked at wooden structures, and the air filled with smoke. Lyria watched as humans rushed in without hesitation, forming chains to move water, guiding children to safety, and shielding each other from danger. Her eyes widened as she saw a young boy separated from his parents, trapped by the fire. Without thinking, she dove into the smoke and lifted him into her arms, moving swiftly to safety. The boy clung to her, frightened but unharmed. As the fire was extinguished, Elias approached her. Princess, you see now. Life is fragile, yet humans protect it fiercely. Our actions are proof of what we say, not just words. Lyria's scales shimmered, reflecting the smoke and the bright sky beyond. She remained silent for a moment, absorbing the reality of what she had witnessed. For the first time, she felt doubt toward her own assumptions. Humans were not just liars or deceivers. They were protectors, nurturers, and survivors. When the settlement's people gathered to thank her and the humans for helping, Lyria noticed something she had never seen before. Smiles that were real, laughter that was honest, and gratitude that was heartfelt. She could not dismiss it. That evening, as the sun set over the rolling fields, she stood with Elias gazing at the horizon. Her voice was quieter than before, almost reflective. I still have questions. But perhaps there is more truth in your ways than I imagined. I will watch, I will learn, but I remain cautious. Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. That is all we ask, Princess. Witness life, and the rest will follow. Understanding grows slowly, but it is stronger when it is earned. Lyria nodded, her eyes thoughtful. The stubborn anger that had defined her in the city now softened into curiosity. She realized that truth was not always delivered in data or words. It often came through experience, observation, and courage. As the night fell over the settlement, Lyria stood on a small hill, looking at the humans going about their lives. Somewhere deep within her, the first seeds of change had been planted. She did not yet trust completely, nor fully accept their ways. But a new path had begun, one that might one day lead her to the truth she had so loudly denied. And though she would not admit it yet, a quiet thought lingered in her mind. Perhaps humans were not telling lies after all. The days passed in the human settlement, and Princess Lyria found herself observing more than ever. Every small moment held lessons she had not expected. She watched a mother patiently teach her child to walk, saw neighbors share their food without hesitation, and even witnessed young adults helping the elderly repair homes after a storm. At first, Lyria remained skeptical. Humans are clever actors, she muttered to herself one morning. You display care, but it is calculated, not true. Dr. Mara Collins overheard her and smiled gently. Princess, true care often appears in action, not words. Watch, and you will see it yourself. And Lyria did. She could not help noticing how the humans responded to challenges, not for recognition or reward, but because it was right. When a field of crops threatened to be ruined by sudden frost, villagers worked together, improvising heaters and covering delicate plants. No one demanded praise, no one expected thanks. They acted out of responsibility and concern for others. One evening, a young girl approached Lyria cautiously. Her small hands carried a simple bouquet of wildflowers. The princess bent down, surprised, as the girl extended the gift. For you, the girl said softly. Lyria hesitated. She had not expected this, had not expected a gesture so simple and sincere. For me? She asked, voice soft. Yes, the girl replied, because you help us. You saved my brother from the fire. Lyria felt a strange warmth in her chest, one that she had never experienced in her palace. It was not pride, exactly, but a recognition of connection, of trust, of something deeply human. That night, as Lyria lay in a small guest room provided by Elias, she reflected on all she had seen. Perhaps humans were not telling lies. Perhaps their way of creating life, raising children and nurturing each other was not deceit, but an expression of strength. The next challenge came unexpectedly. A sudden storm swept across the settlement, with fierce winds and heavy rain threatening to destroy homes and crops. Humans scrambled to protect one another, forming chains to move supplies, securing children, and evacuating the most vulnerable. Lyria watched in awe. Despite the chaos, despite the danger, no one panicked. Every action was deliberate, every choice intentional. Observe, Princess, Elias said, standing beside her. This is the essence of human life. Resilience, care, and courage. Not perfection, but action, driven by empathy and responsibility. Lyria's scales shimmered in the dim light, reflecting her inner conflict. She had always thought humans were selfish and deceptive, yet here, in this storm, she saw undeniable truth. Humans risked everything to protect life, to care for one another, and to preserve what mattered. By the time the storm passed, Lyria had changed. She did not yet fully trust humanity, nor fully accept their ways, but she could no longer dismiss them as liars. There was too much evidence, too many acts of courage and care that could not be faked. In the following weeks, Elias invited Lyria to participate in daily life. She learned to plant seeds, repair machinery, and even cook simple meals. Each activity, though mundane to humans, held lessons about patience, effort, and responsibility. Lyria found herself laughing at small mistakes, helping children with their studies, and even guiding young adults in problem-solving exercises. Slowly, she began to understand. Human life was not about control or deception. It was about creating bonds, taking responsibility, and shaping the future. The act of procreation was not just a biological necessity. It was an opportunity for humans to nurture, to teach, and to protect. One afternoon, while helping a farmer repair a broken water pump, Lyria paused. "I thought humans lied about creation, about life," she said quietly. "I thought your tales were meant to deceive. But now, I see something different. You are not liars. You are builders, protectors, and teachers." Elias smiled. "You have begun to see what we hoped you would, Princess. Life is fragile, yes, but also precious. Humanity does not perfect it, but we honor it through care, effort, and connection." The turning point came during a community celebration. The humans had gathered to mark the end of the planting season, sharing food, music, and laughter. Lyria observed, initially detached, as children ran through the fields and adults sang songs that celebrated survival and hope. Then a young boy tripped and fell, scraping his knee. Without hesitation, several adults rushed to help, gently cleaning the wound, comforting him and making sure he was safe. Lyria's heart stirred. She realized that this simple act, a knee scraped, a child comforted, embodied everything she had struggled to understand. It was not grand or heroic, yet it revealed humanity's true nature, empathy in action. The princess's voice was quiet when she finally spoke to Elias that evening. "I see now. Perhaps I was wrong. Procreation and human life. It is not lies. It is care, courage, and hope. It is truth expressed through action." Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Princess, understanding often takes time. You have seen human life not just as data, but as experience. That is the strongest truth of all." When Lyria returned to the royal city, she carried with her not just knowledge, but a new perspective. She spoke to her people of what she had witnessed, describing humans not as deceitful, but as resilient and compassionate. She told tales of courage, care, and communal effort, highlighting actions rather than words, lessons rather than theories. The Zalari citizens were amazed. Many had doubted the humans, fearing deception or weakness, but Lyria's testimony, backed by her first-hand experiences, changed minds. Slowly, skepticism gave way to curiosity, and curiosity opened the door to dialogue. In private, Lyria reflected on her own transformation. She realized that her anger and disbelief had been rooted not in truth, but in assumptions and fear of the unknown. Humans had challenged her beliefs not by force, but by showing patience, compassion, and strength in everyday life. For the first time, she considered a future in which humans and Zalari could coexist, not as strangers, but as allies who respected each other's ways. She understood that what humans called procreation was more than a biological process. It was an expression of responsibility, courage, and hope for the future. Standing on a balcony overlooking the city, Lyria whispered softly, almost to herself, "Perhaps some lies are simply truths we refuse to see." The words lingered in the air as the sun set, casting a golden glow across the floating spires. In that moment, Lyria knew she had changed. She no longer shouted accusations. She no longer doubted. Instead, she carried the understanding that life, human or Zalari, was a delicate, precious gift, strengthened by care, courage, and connection. Elias watched her from the doorway, a faint smile on his face. "You have come far, Princess. Not everyone is willing to question their beliefs, let alone accept new truths." Lyria turned to him, her eyes soft yet determined. "I have learned that truth is not always found in words or data. Sometimes it is found in action, in choice, and in the willingness to care. Humans have shown me that, and for that, I am grateful." In the days that followed, the Zalari began to open channels of communication with humans, exchanging knowledge, sharing culture, and learning from each other. Lyria played a crucial role in fostering understanding, her perspective shaped by experience rather than assumption. And though she remained a princess of a proud alien race, she carried within her the essence of what she had witnessed among humans: courage, empathy, and the unwavering desire to nurture life. In the end, she understood that humans were not liars, and that the act of procreation, what she had once so loudly denied, was in fact a celebration of life itself, a celebration of hope, responsibility, and the bonds that connect beings across worlds. And as she looked at the humans who had earned her respect, Lyria allowed herself a quiet smile, realizing that the universe was larger, more complex, and far more beautiful than she had ever imagined. She would never forget what she had learned, and she knew that her world, and perhaps the galaxy, would be richer for it.